Hey everybody, Mr. K back. Gonna show you my FLH. Okay, so we got the tanks off, and as you can see, it's pretty cruddy underneath of there, and pretty cruddy. Okay, and then you can see more of the roughness of the frame and everything inside there. But good news is it's all fixable stuff. So you can come over here. I took the seat and the rear sissy bar off, which I think I'm going to run with no sissy bar. Let's see here. You can see on this side. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Took the air filter off to get the fuel line, and we got a nice Kean carburetor on there. And as you can see, it's pretty rough. So we're going to take all this. I might have to take the rocker boxes off, but I'm probably going to pull the engine from the frame so I can get the frame painted. I took off the dash and everything, and I noticed that there was look at that. We got a wire that burnt through somewhere, so I got to figure out a short or something because there was no issues and everything worked. So I'm not sure what that is. I'll have to get to the diagram and figure it out. And I'll show you over here. We got our Ironhead project. We got our 883 project. And then we got our 1950 Panhead project. All kind of waiting. Some parts. Okay, so we have the fuel tanks over here, and they don't look too bad. Lots of glue and junk, a little bit of rust right there. And I was concerned because we had a fuel leak, and I was really worried that it was here, right along there, like between the tank and the bung. I was worried that it was leaking there, but I took my petcock valve off, and look at that. The gasket that seals it look at it, it's all carbon junked up, and so it was leaking. So we'll get a new gasket. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and replace this petcock valve because it was so hard to turn on and off. So I'm going to probably get a new one. So the good news is I don't believe it was leaking at the actual tank. It was leaking right here where the gasket should be, right there. All right. And the other tank, you can see it's got some scarring there. But other than that, it looks like it's pretty good shape. It came off. It was mounted nice, so not too many people been in there cobbling it up. All right, so that's where we're at. Got the tanks off. Probably gonna get to the rear fender next. My buddy said he's gonna paint it, and we'll keep on trucking. All right, until then. Okay, so we're here today with my FLH project with my good buddy Mr. Dale, and we're in his paint shop, and we're going to get some advice on these tanks and maybe what we could do to salvage these tanks. So I guess my question would be right off the bat is, can we save these pinstripes? That's the main thing I was thinking about. Can we save those pinstripes?
Yeah, I was looking at these earlier. They look to me like they're painted on, not a decal. They're probably painted on from the factory. So being that there's some rust real close to it, and there's a dent here.
Yeah, I see that.
There's a dent right here. We're probably gonna have to take these tanks down to bare metal, and when we do that, we're gonna lose the pinstripes. So okay. I think the first thing we should do before we get going too far is we gotta come up with the color for these stripes. So
Like the Harley official
Yeah.
gold.
Yeah, the Harley. So what I would do first, and I didn't do any of this, and maybe you could do it sometime. I would root around on the website or some type of Harley books or whatever forums and see if we can figure out the color of that. We got to do that before we.
It's kind of like a metallic gold. It was a popular thing for that year, and the anniversary edition all had that.
Yeah.
They all had that. But as you can see, even the pinstripe itself with the chip is broken, so no matter what, it has to be fixed, I guess. And my other question, I guess, is how would you get these plastic emblems off?
To get the emblems off, there's a lot of different ways. So you always want to try the least aggressive way to do it, so you don't break them or destroy them. So what we do is just a heat gun, heat them up, and you can use, the guy would start first with this little plastic scraper. You could try to work it in, take your time and get them off. I know people use fishing line, get a piece of fishing line back there.
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
But there's a lot. You could do like a flat bladed metal putty knife or something, but as long as you put some heat to it first, but don't get too close or you'll melt it, because it looks like it's plastic.
It is plastic. And another thing too I was concerned about was this area right here because of the fuel leakage, but it's not leaking fuel here, it was just leaking here at the gasket. So could you can fill that with paint?
Are you worried about
See the gap right there?
rust or
The gap in between there, yeah.
Oh, as long as it's not leaking. Is it leaking?
No,
You said? No. So,
not the tank, the petcock valve was.
yeah, but if you clean the threads up and put a new one on, it should be good, right?
Yeah.
So what we would do with this is we try to get the whole tank down to bare metal, either by like 80 grit on a palm sander. That's probably what I would do to get most of it off. When you got the rust like around here, I'd get a wire brush on a drill and try to get that cleaned up. You could sandblast that if you want your tank, but you'd want to cover that up and not get any sand inside your tank. I don't really use sandblaster a lot, but you could use that if you needed to.
Okay.
As far as the gold though, like if you can't find that in a Harley book or the internet or something, like you could get close to that. Like
Close.
what we do sometimes is we'll go through our paint books and try to find something close, some gold that's close,
Yeah. Okay.
and try to match it up as close as you can.
Right.
And then if you can't get a perfect match, you can always tint it and add colors, and you just have to work with it a little bit to get a perfect match. But
So if I get this pinstriped,
oh yeah.
and you would be able to clear over that?
Yeah, so what we would do with that is, before we sanded anything off, is first of all, we'd take a lot of measurements.
Okay.
Measurements.
Lots of pictures.
A lot of pictures, a lot of measurements from the edge to where it curves around. Measurements from this edge all the way up to here, so you kind of know where you're at with it. And then we would probably paint the tank gold first, and then we would mask off your stripes
I see.
with this fine line tape.
I see.
And they make different thicknesses of this tape.
Okay.
And you can just put this gold like right over, like paint this gold first, and then you get a stripe tape that fits it perfectly, and then you would tape that up.
I
Tape
see.
both sides up, then you'd paint the whole thing black.
So the gold will be underneath.
Yeah, the gold would be under, and then you would
Gotcha.
take it off, clear it, 2 or 3 coats of clear. Then I'd probably sand it all back down and then re-clear it 2 or 3 more coats, and then at that point it should be buried enough so when you run your hand over it, you wouldn't.
Yeah, because I do like the way it's smooth.
Yeah, you wouldn't feel it.
Well, I guess that's what we're gonna do if you're into that. I'm gonna get the rear fender off here this evening, and well, I guess we'll hit the same thing. The front fender, I do want you to look at because of that anniversary emblem on it.
Yeah, probably same deal. Sometimes those emblems could have a little speed nut or something on the back to hold. So
it's
I'm not
basic.
sure.
It's like a sticker.
But these are probably like this one's probably like double-sided tape.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah. Well,
all right. Well, that's that's our next step on our 1978 Harley Davidson FLH Anniversary Edition. Keep tuning in. Thanks. Okay. Gonna start to take off the rear fender, and you can just see how we're doing it here. So this particular fender is a split back fender, and what it was is if you had a flat, you could go ahead and lift this up and get your rear out of there with less trouble. So what I did already was I took off the license plate bracket and the license plate, and we're going to retain all the hardware, and the shocks are going to have to come off. And what I'll do is I'll take these fender struts off at the mounts here, and I have the bike supported by a jack, so I can get it to where I can go ahead and slip the shocks off with still having it held up by the jack. And then once the fender struts and all that are off, I'll be able to take the fender off. And then while we're underneath there, you can see the wiring is pretty original in that. So we're gonna take it off. Doesn't look too bad. Nothing real, no big heavy cracks or anything. So, okay, gonna get this fender off. Okay, rear fender off. I took the shocks and struts and everything off. And as you can see, it's pretty rusted. Okay, same with their swing arm. The chain guard is pretty busted up. It's pretty typical that they break and crack there. And it's been rubbing. Looks like someone had some saddlebags or something on it. It's got a dent. I'm not sure. I'll probably just pick up another one of these. Maybe a chrome one. So do that. Boy, I'll tell you, looks like it's been setting for a while because the rust on the shock bolts. We're gonna have to really clean all that stuff up. Another thing too that I noticed is that the shock bushings are pretty beat. So to me, it looks like I'm going to be looking for a set of rear shocks. As you can see, they're hitting pretty good. Okay, and they're pretty old. So I'm thinking maybe a good set of replacement shocks. That one's pretty rough. And on this side, same thing. Got pretty rough. You can see up here, it was pretty rusted underneath there. I'm glad I'm doing this. Didn't know whether to take it all the way down or not, but I have all winter. Yeah, that's pretty rusted right there. And you can see it's a little flexed. If you can see it on there. Okay. And to our rear fender, I got the lights and everything off. Really cruddy underneath there, but that's normal. Everything else looks pretty good. It's not cracked or anything. We got the wire holders. I took the tail light out. The hinge area is pretty good. Let me see. Hinge area is in pretty good shape. Now, when we go to paint that, I'm going to see if he'll disconnect all that. But these I'm going to have to fix right there. And that's where the fenders meet each other here. As you say, it's pretty rusted. And my turn signals, I'm going to rewire all that because someone just had some of those quick connector clips on there. So we're going to go ahead and wire it up. But everything else looks pretty good. So hopefully you guys are as excited as I am for this project. And that's episode 2, so stay tuned. All right.